Yeah. I killed my mama. One night, it was my 14th birthday. And she was drunk, and we had an argument. She hit me with a whiskey bottle. And I shot her. I shot her dead.
I thought you said you stabbed her.
Oh, yeah. That's right. I stabbed her.
Welcome to the Blind Rage Podcast. This is Brandon Ford.
And my lawyer liked that. Tony the Tiger, the Thunder from Down Under.
I never know what the fuck you're doing. What is that a reference to?
Well, you'll have to figure it out afterwards. Actually, I was thinking I enjoyed one of our recordings where you sort of started recording mid-conversation, but...
Yeah, but that didn't turn out too well.
The one about Zac Efron?
Yeah.
I thought
because there are, see, what I was trying to do is there are a lot of podcasts I listen to where they start recording while they're in the middle of a conversation, and you'll hear like the theme song and then the actual episode kind of fades in and they're in the middle of the conversation,
kind of like,
and then they'll do the introduction.
Yes.
So that's what I was trying to do, but that's got to be organic.
Yeah, it's hard because we all have to press record, so we can't be surprised with it.
No. And plus, I'm not very good with the editing. I'm better than I was at one point, but I still have miles to go because I'm
miles to go before
away.
You sleep, yes.
No, I was going a different...
No, I realize you're going another literary icon then.
Yes, I was. But anyway, speaking of icons, we are doing Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer this week by a cinematic icon, Mr. John McNaughton, who has brought us one of the best erotic thrillers of the 90s. And what was that?
That was Wild Things.
That it was
one of my favorite movies.
Is it really?
Yes, I do love it actually. And I got ridiculed the last time I said that.
Who would ridicule you for such a thing?
Well, obviously she didn't love it as much as I did, but that was a really great example of sticking with like a theme and just going with it the whole way. Like, I'm going to be sleazy and you're going to love this movie.
I think this is sleazier than Wild Things.
Okay.
I found Wild Things to be more exploitative, which I don't have a problem with.
Yeah.
But, I mean, as far as erotic thrillers go, I've definitely seen sleazier. And I know you have too, because you've seen more than your share of Shannon Tweed.
Yeah, but they're soft-core thrillers. They're not... She was in an episode of Frasier, and I was like, oh my god, I know that woman.
Yeah. I can't believe she actually married fucking Gene Simmons. Even though, he cheated on her a bunch like 10 million times.
Yeah, he doesn't drink.
No, he doesn't do anything, but that doesn't mean he's a good person.
No, I'm saying, like, I'd rather be with an alcoholic than an adulterer.
I don't drink.
Not an alcoholic, but, like, someone who doesn't mind a drink.
I don't drink at all.
Well, that explains everything.
I don't like alcohol. I'm not a fan. But anyway, yes, so this is the Blind Rage podcast, and this week's commentary is Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer, starring fucking Michael Rooker, Tracy, what's her name? Tracy
Arnold?
I was going to say Tracy Morgan. Tracy Arnold and Tom Towles. Okay. But before we get into that stuff, I would, I'm just going to get the plugs out of the way. Tony, did you know that I write books?
I've heard that down the pipeline, yes.
Yes, it's a true story. I write books, and if you like the commentaries that we do, or the movies that we do commentaries for, rather, there's a good chance that you might enjoy my books, because I also write content in the horror and suspense
Do they come in
realm.
Kindle and paperback editions?
They
Oh
do.
my God!
And guess what?
What?
Some even come in hardcover.
Ooh. You're getting
And
me
you can
hardcover.
find them. Oh. And you can find them on Amazon by typing in Brandon Ford. And you can also find my author page there. And if you prefer audiobooks, I have several titles on Audible, which you can check out. And they are not narrated by me. Yes, I am... Oh, if you don't already, please... See how it's been so long since we last recorded that I've completely forgotten
You've lost your
my
rhythm.
plugs.
It's like
I
you're
have.
gonna come soon.
I used to be like... And now I'm stumbling. See, I'm out of practice. I'm like a rusted hinge. Yes, so
Should
if
use
you
your
don't already,
fleshlight.
please... Excuse me, I'm talking here. That's not helping the rhythm. If you don't already, please follow me on Instagram at writer Brandon Ford. You can follow me on Twitter, even though I'm really inactive on there, at Brandon Ford. I'm also on Letterboxd at Brandon Ford. What is your Twitter handle again? Madonna
Horror Complex.
something? Madonna Horror Complex, where Tony incorporates Madonna lyrics into horror movie.
I have
Images.
12 followers.
Wow.
Let's build that up, people.
Yeah, let's do it. And maybe one day Tony will get on Instagram.
And I also have
But by
Michael
now-
Letterboxd, yes.
Yes, but by now I know not to hold my breath on that. Yeah, Tony is on Instagram at Tony_the_bear. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, critiques, suggestions, recommendations, feel free to email me directly at blindragepod81@gmail.com. Please don't forget to stop by the official Blind Rage Podcast Facebook page to like and subscribe. Don't forget to please rate and review the Blind Rage Podcast on your favorite podcasting platform. And if you're listening to this episode on the Blind Rage Podcast YouTube channel, please don't forget to like and subscribe and leave a comment below. We would very much like to hear from you. It really frustrates me because I have some videos or some episodes, one in particular, that has something like, like 26,000. 26,000 plays. And it's got like 20 likes. I mean, come on. How hard is it to push the like button?
Well, it's hard when you're a bot.
Don't say that. Why do you have to go? See, I thought you were always the more positive of us. You were the glasses half full, and I was always the glasses half empty. Now, you're taking... Shut up.
Let's forget that I said that.
Yeah, well, it's not
We
the
need,
first
we
time
need to
you
do
said it
another...
either.
Because was that for Far From Home?
Drew Barrymore movie?
Yeah, so we need to do another Drew Barrymore movie and see how that goes. Like if it's
Well,
an
she did a
algorithm.
couple of other thrillers around that time, but they were terrible.
Oh,
And I already did
and
Poison
didn't you say
Ivy.
what did Poison Ivy get? Was that pretty high up or not?
No, I didn't. Because of the way Poison Ivy was recorded,
Oh,
I
yeah,
couldn't. I couldn't do it. Um, but she did. She did a movie called No Place to Hide with Chris Christopherson,
Oh my god! You know, I've never seen
and that was
Firestarter,
terrible.
by the way.
It's good, but it's kind of slow.
Yeah, I'm not gonna watch. The
I liked it
remake,
when I
though.
was younger. But she did another movie around that erotic thriller time called Doppelganger.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Which was also terrible. Yeah, speaking of movies, what have you been watching recently?
I've gotten in a few movies under my belt since we last spoke. One of the more notable ones was one that I was recommended by a friend, and I didn't like it. It's called Celia, otherwise known as Celia, Child of Terror, and it was like a 1980s.
That sounds like a 70s movie.
It looks very 70s, but it was made in like 1988 in Australia, so it is a very 70s feel. But it's not nearly as scary as what it was trying to make out to be. I feel like maybe the tagline was added after the fact, but it's just about a girl who she's got a vivid imagination, and like, you know, she imagines scary stuff outside of her door, and it's set during the time of the Red Menace, during like the 60s or 50s in Australia, and also deals with a bit of the rabbit pest outbreak and myxomatosis. It's not all that interesting. It's not even like I don't mind the movie Picnic at Hanging Rock.
Oh, you do? I just got that not too long ago.
They actually
I haven't watched it yet.
remade it into a series, and I did not like the series. The series was very hipster and
Oh.
kind of. I mean, I enjoyed Sofia Coppola's Marie Antoinette. This was like a really bad attempt at trying to have that sort of feel, where it was trying to show like a vintage story, but like really done up well. Anyway, back to Celia. So, I wrote that I feel like it could have been done better. It reminded me a little bit of, say, early Neil Jordan work, where there was an element of fantasy and reality, and I think had they lent into the fantasy, it would have worked better. But yeah, it just wasn't great. The other stuff that I watched actually, I have been watching a bit of Prime Suspect from the 90s, which is a Helen Mirren, like our TV movies. But in saying that, I watched the HBO movie about Phil Spector that had Helen Mirren and Al Pacino, and that was all right. It focused really just on his defense, and that was really about all, you know, so it didn't really dive too much into really the crime or much background before that, you know. It just really looked at her trying to defend him and what to do at the court, you know, which ended up being a mistrial. I watched Joyride with Paul Walker. And
You never saw that?
I have seen it. And yeah, again, was baffled by the hype around Lily Sobieski. Not that I feel that she's a bad actress, I just never understood why there was such hope in her. Oh, and I watched Sophie's
Very
Choice
nice.
for the first time.
Very nice scene with Paul and Steve Zahn.
Oh, yeah, that's true, yes. That was a good highlight from the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Stepbrother, what are you doing?
What was that? Circus what? Circus Joy? What?
Nothing. And Sophie's Choice, which I had not seen, but enjoyed it.
Sophie's Stories? What's
No,
that?
Sophie's Choice.
Oh, Sophie's Choice.
Yes.
Oh, that's depressing. Why would you watch that?
Because I've heard of the the concept, but never seen it. So I don't want to be, not that I've ever made mention of Sophie's Choice, but at least now I can use that term and know what it's referring to precisely.
Oh, you didn't know what it was about? I knew what it was.
I knew what it was about, but I just hadn't seen it, so.
Yeah, that's the movie with Madeline Ashton.
Yes.
Did you hear that she's a homewrecker? She's
And a
man
bad actress.
Eater, and she's a bad actress.
I was trying to figure it out, but in apparently in one of the mental asylum scenes, it has Howard Wolowitz's mother is in it. But because you don't,
Who?
Howard Wolowitz's mother is in one of the scenes.
Oh yeah, she was all over the place.
Yeah.
She was a character actress.
Yeah.
She was in also in Outrageous Fortune with Shelley Long and Bette Midler.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I used to see her a lot once upon a time. And she was on an episode of Seinfeld.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And what have you been watching?
I don't even remember what I watched when we last recorded. Did I talk about the black phone?
Yes. And you said
I
about
did.
how the children actors are talking much more adult. Than what
Oh,
they
that's
ever
true.
would.
I did say that. Yes. Mm-hmm. I did say that.
I'm looking at my papers to see if I wrote down what you'd written, what you'd watched, but no.
Why would you do that? You don't do that.
Well, because sometimes you ask me to remind you.
Okay. Well, all right. I did get to see, finally, a movie that I'd been wanting to see for a while. The A24 movie. I think it's A24. Yeah. Men.
Yes, I believe it is A24.
I was not wild about that one. I was not. I didn't know what the fuck was going on. And it's really, really difficult to be able to watch a movie that is littered with visual symbolism
Yes.
when you're visually impaired. So, and then I had to go on YouTube, and because I didn't even understand what the fuck it was about when I read the plot summary on Wikipedia. So I was like, okay, I gotta go to YouTube and see and listen to somebody explain this to me. And even then, I was like, what? But it was a folk horror movie, which is big these days thanks to Hereditary and Midsummer, and The Witch.
Mm-hmm.
But it was about a woman who has just she was in an abusive marriage, and she threatens to divorce her husband, and he says, if you divorce me, I'm going to kill myself. And he was, I don't know, I guess he was unstable. Yeah, I'm going to say yes, he was unstable. So he kills himself, and I guess to kind of get away from the memory of that, she goes to the English countryside and rents a house for a while to regroup. And she meets these very odd characters who are all played by the same actor.
Rory
And
Kinnear.
so they all have the same, yes, they all have the same face. And one of them tries to break into the house, and it becomes kind of, I don't even know what the hell to compare it to, because it was just so odd. But it definitely wasn't one of those movies where you start to think, okay, I wonder if this is all in her head. No. Um, it was just weird. That's all I could really have to say about it. It was odd.
Okay.
The performances were good. But it was just a little too strange for me.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's what A24 is leaning towards is the strangeties.
Yeah, movies that are outside of the Hollywood system, which I can appreciate, but you know,
You want a bit of you don't need to reinvent the
coherency.
wheel. You just want it circle.
Yeah. Another movie that I watched. And this was another one that I was very much looking forward to. And was not a fan of. Was The Stylist.
Okay.
And it was a first time director who made a feature out of her short film, which follows the same story, and it definitely took a few pages from May because the lead character is very May-esque. Only she's not as well written or fleshed out. But it's about a woman who is a hairstylist, and she's very socially awkward, and she doesn't know how to talk to people. She doesn't have any friends, and she scalps women and wears their hair like a wig. And she has this basement where she keeps all the wigs on, like mannequin or wig heads or whatever the fuck they're called. And she has like a vanity mirror with like all the light bulbs in a circle, you know, like Madeline Ashton. But what I found to be confusing was the movie opens with her seeing a client, and her name's Claire, the main girl.
Claire.
And her name's Claire, and she's seeing a client for the first time, and she approaches her. Her name's Sarah, and she goes, "Hi, you must be Sarah. I'm Claire. Very nice to meet you." She shakes hands with her. She says, "Okay, so what are we doing today?" And the woman talks to her about her job and that she travels a lot with her job, and she loves it because she meets new people all the time. And Claire says, "That's why I enjoy what I do, because I get to meet and talk to people new and hear all kinds of stories and blah, blah, blah." And she comes across as very pedestrian.
Yeah.
So which is why I didn't understand, like, in the next scene, why she's like a totally different character. I'm like, what was this shift? And there's no explanation for that. So, this other woman who's a regular client wants Claire to do her hair for her upcoming wedding. And so I don't know about women's hair, whatever they do. I don't know. Okay. I've always been a bridesmaid, but never a bride. No, I don't know what they do. But apparently, if you're a bride and you're hiring a stylist to do your hair for your wedding, you go to the salon to get like a dry run, basically. So that's what she does. So she gets it cut so it can be styled the specific way. She says a picture. She says, "I want it this way." And Claire's like, "Okay." So they do it, and she loves it. And then I forget the girl's name, but she's like, "You know what? We should hang out. We'll have girls' night, and I'll show you my wedding dress." So she invites Claire over to the apartment, and this is really where Claire gets weird. But she doesn't do anything strange. She's just not. she's just very awkward. She doesn't know how to carry a conversation. She doesn't really give much of anything about herself. She asks a lot of questions. And she lingers a little too long than she probably should. And then the woman who plays the bride doesn't really notice anything is out of whack about this girl. And even invites her to not only come to do her hair for the wedding, but to come to the fucking reception.
Yeah.
Even after she sees her acting all crazy. So there's a lot of stuff like that doesn't make sense. And there's a lot of holes in the plot. Like, the biggest one being, why does she do this? You would think that there would...
By the way. The women who
she
now
stabs
have no
them.
head.
She stabs them and then she scalps them.
And then gets rid of their bodies somehow.
Yes, I don't know if that's really even explored. But she poisons one girl, but it's really not explained as to. Well, there was a theory that she has some kind of lesbian attraction to the bride, and that's why she becomes obsessive over her. I didn't get that at all. But that was just a theory in a review that I watched on YouTube because I wanted to hear somebody else's thoughts and to see if they had the same issues that I did. And lo and behold, yeah, they did. But there's no previous trauma. There's no childhood abuse. There's no real reason why. It would be something like she's so dissatisfied with the way she looks. She doesn't like herself. She's not happy in her own skin. So she wants to be like the women who come into the salon. So she takes their scalps and, it would make a lot more sense if there were scenes where she gets their clothes and behaves like them or something like that.
Yeah.
But it was just nothing.
Yeah.
She just did this just because. And you don't know anything at all about her family, if she even has family, anything really. So the script, I think definitely it came across as very first draft.
Okay.
It could have used a lot of fleshing out. And it had a good running time. It was like an hour, 42 minutes, something like that. So I think some of the more banal stuff could have been replaced with background that would have made the story a little more coherent. But like I said, I was really excited to see this one because it sounded very twisted, and I like things like that. And I was getting a little bit of Maniac.
Oh, okay.
Well, I was getting May, but I was also getting Maniac. So yeah. So that's whatever the fuck it's called. The Stylist. Yeah.
Remember when phones used to come with a stylus?
Oh god, oh man. Yeah. So, we're gonna watch Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer now. And this is the Blu-ray edition, which is 4:6, which is the way it was, because it was shot in 16. And this was the way it was supposed to look. On Tubi, and I know there are some other versions that have it in a widescreen, but that was not the way John McNaughton intended for it to look. So what we are watching now is the full frame 4:6 version, which was Mr. McNaughton's vision. So if you want to, well, I don't think it really matters. But if you want to watch along, you can do that. And again, I don't really think it matters which version because I think there's only one cut of it. Unless you're in the UK. Well, I don't even think it got cut in the UK because I don't think it came out in the UK.
Came out, yeah.
Not originally.
Yeah.
Now it's out over there.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me just make sure I have the file pulled up here. Okay. So we are going to begin in 3, 2, 1, play. Okay. I really like the score for this. It's very creepy.
It reminds me a little of Tears for Fears.
Okay, no.
Dun, 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 dun. You know. And something happens at night.
Okay, settle. And the score was done by Robert McNaughton, who, believe it or not, is no relation. McNaughton is not exactly a common name.
No.
But to find somebody else to do the score for your movie, yeah, that's a little unusual. But you had never seen this before, is that right?
No, I hadn't, no.
Is there any reason you steered clear of it, or you just had no interest?
Honestly, I think the title just didn't seem interesting to me. And I think because because I feel like I had seen the image of it at the video store.
Yeah, the cover's kind of bland.
Yeah. It seemed too much of a drama, I think.
Well, funny you should say that because for the longest time, I never rented it because my local mom and pop had it in drama.
Okay, yeah, I could imagine it being in drama. It reminds me more of, like in the vein of Boys Don't Cry. That's actually, I see it as that type of film.
Well, MPI owns the rights to it. I think they still do. I think they put out the Blu-ray here, but they put it out on VHS originally in 1990, and I first saw it when I was about 16. And you will never guess what trailer was on the tape before the movie.
Crocodile Dundee.
Death Spa.
Oh, okay. Was there an ad
That
at
was
the
how-
end of the VHS to buy t-shirts?
I don't remember. They didn't. That really wasn't that common.
Okay. No, it was
For trailers.
I read a review of it, and somebody commented how that there was an ad at the end of their VHS that they found like disturbing because like they're trying to cash in on a serial killer. I was like, fuck off.
Okay. Maybe that was on. I don't know. But I wanted to say that the woman that we saw lying on her stomach, the dead body, that was a direct copy of a crime scene photo of nobody ever found out who she was.
Yeah.
But she was a victim of Henry Lee Lucas, and that's how they found her. And she was only wearing orange socks. She was naked, and she was dropped by, I believe, I think it was No Dumping.
Oh, no,
And
that
they
was... Unless that was done again. That was in... Warner.
Copycat?
Yeah.
Yeah, because he was copying Henry Lee Lucas.
Okay.
Because he was a copycat.
he was copying Warner and Berkowitz, or they were a couple.
No, that maybe, No, that he was that was that was Son of Sam. He shot people in the car.
Okay,
in
no,
their
well,
car.
anyway, the one that was by the No Dumping sign was two guys. One was a secretor, one was not. They had two different types of sperm. I've seen Copycat enough times.
Jesus Christ. Copycat's a really good movie. Yeah, I used to have a book on Henry Lee Lucas, and I saw that picture
Was he ever
of
found?
Orange Stocks. Yeah.
He was, okay. No, I don't know why, but someone mentioned that he wasn't found, and I was like, but how do you know his name?
Yeah, but I also wanted to say that the woman that was on the ground in the beginning, and the woman that is here, I think, is that her with her big old titty hanging out?
Yeah, and the bottle in her face.
Yeah, and the bottle in her face. That's her. And when the scene with Henry and Otis with the prostitutes, the first girl who gets her neck snapped, they are all the same girl.
Yeah.
So this only had $100,000 budget, so they had to call in a lot of favors from people, and she did that for free.
Okay.
That girl, the actress Mary something, I forget her name. But a lot of the people who did very small roles just did it for free.
Okay.
And there's one scene. Well, it's funny because John McNaughton, this was his first movie.
Yeah.
And he didn't know anything really about the legalities when it comes to putting people on film. He knew enough to call, because this was filmed in Chicago, he knew enough to inquire about permits. But they didn't require him to get permits. They just said, let us know when you're going to be in whatever area so we know what's going on in case somebody thinks a real crime is happening. But other than that, they pretty much, the mayor or whoever, they let him do what he wanted. But you're still supposed to have people sign off if they're going to be extras in the movie.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, the scene where Becky is coming out of the subway when she goes to apply for the job as the shampoo girl, there's two guys right by the exit, and I think they're speaking in Greek. They were just there. And I don't know if they spoke English or not, but John was like, would you mind moving? And they were like, no. They would not move. They were in this very heated argument or conversation or whatever, and they did not give a fuck what John was doing with the camera or what the other people with John were doing. They were going to carry on the conversation, and they did, and it got in the movie.
Yeah.
And there's another woman who's got like a what is it? A tiger print coat or something that comes out of a store. She just came out of a store.
Yeah.
That was just a random person. But John said that he kind of misses those days when you could do that.
Yeah.
Because he really doesn't like when he does Hollywood movies now, or he does a lot of TV too.
Yeah.
But when you do a big scene that requires extras, they come across as phony because they're not
They
acting.
are phony. Yeah.
They are funny, yeah. And because they try to do something to stand out. They have an inability to act naturally.
Yeah.
I just always think of this one really low budget movie where there was two characters talking, and in the background, you know how if it's a character, or if it's characters who are in the background and they're having a conversation, you know, you're not supposed to hear them. They just say like they just mouth peas and carrots or ABC or whatever.
Yeah, and like do a nod and a smile, you know, like to make it look like as if they're involved.
Yeah,
in
they
the
just
conversation.
move their mouths
Yeah.
to make it look like they're talking. So it was these two guys, and it looked very much like they came up with what they were going to do in advance.
Yeah.
Because the way it starts is one of them is walking, the other one comes up behind him, taps him on the shoulder, turns him around, and starts like, you know, very dramatically gesticulating with his arms. He's talking with his hands. His mouth is moving rapidly. The hands are going up and down. He's making point after point. It's very, very dramatic.
Yeah.
And it just looked so fucking fake, and it was distracting to what you were actually supposed to be paying attention to. So, totally, and plus you got that whole thing with the guy pulling his dick out in Teen Wolf. What was that?
Yeah.
But so
So John wants more of that type of stuff.
John misses doing that kind of thing, but you can't really do that anymore.
Yeah.
Really.
Well, yeah, once you start working your way up the Hollywood machine.
Well, I think he was really able to get. Yeah, I mean, yeah, because this was kind of an independent film.
Yeah.
Because it really wasn't. I don't think he was
Funded by-
contracted. No, it was funded by these two brothers who distributed public domain movies.
Okay.
Well,
Like
the
New Line.
original? Kind of. No, they distributed other movies too, before they started making their own stuff.
Yeah.
But okay, this is what happens. I'm gonna
Tell it to
tell
me
you.
straight.
I'm gonna tell you the whole story. I'm gonna give you the lowdown, the straight dope. So John was working for these two guys, and they had like kind of a rinky-dink operation that they were working. They were brothers, and they were working out of their mother's basement, and they worked in public domain films like cartoons and shit like that, older movies, and they would distribute them the films in the 35 millimeter reel or whatever it was, 8 millimeter. They would take them to like bars or different venues, and then they would switch them out. And John was working with them for a while, and he thought that it was because he wanted to make a movie for a while, and he thought that that's where this is going to lead, and it kind of did not. And then he I think he did some kind of documentary.
He did a few documentaries about Hollywood, like
Yeah,
murders or
I think it
something.
was one about gangsters or something. And then he was supposed to do a documentary about what was known as WWF at the time, not
yeah.
WWE. But because in the 80s, wrestling became fashionable again because of Hulk Hogan and shit. So he was going to do, and plus he was going to go way back to like the 20s and shit, and like talk about the evolution of wrestling.
Fascinating.
And they were going to get the footage to use from these people who owned it, and they gave them a price for the footage. And then as soon as the two brothers, I can't remember their name, as soon as they went to pick it up, they were like, no, actually we want X amount of dollars. And they were like, okay, we don't work like that, so take your footage and shove it up your ass.
Mm-hmm.
And so they said to John, they're like, "What do you? Why don't you just make something?" And they're like, he was like, What?" They're like, "Yeah. Do you want to make a movie?" And he was like, "Oh yeah. What kind of movie do you want to make? Something that we could do for $100,000. Horror's cheap. It's easy to distribute. We just couldn't do like a monster movie or a science fiction movie. They had to do something that they could afford to make under this kind of budget."
Yeah.
And he got the idea because he was shown a clip of Henry Lee Lucas on 2020, who was being interviewed in prison, and he and a partner wrote the script. I think they wrote it. They wrote it in August of '85, and then they finished it right before they started shooting in like October, and they shot 28 days straight, no break. Some of them were 23-hour days.
Yeah.
And John has told the story several times in different interviews, but they auditioned a lot of community theater actors, local actors. There was one guy they really wanted for Henry, and they were about to cast him, and then he was like, "Okay, this is, beneath me. I don't think I can do this." And John said, to this day, I've never seen or heard from him again.
Yeah.
And then there was another guy he really liked, but he was older, and he thought that it would be more of a father-daughter dynamic between he and the Becky character.
Yeah.
And there's a friend of John's who said, "I know this guy. I just seen him in a play, and he's really good, and I think he would work. Do you want to see him?" And John was like, "I don't care. I'll see anybody." So he's like, tell him to come to the apartment. So John said, as soon as he opened the apartment and he saw Michael Rooker, he knew he was the guy.
Yeah.
Right away. He was like, I thought to myself, please God, just give him the ability to act. And he read him, and he did really well. He stayed in character, which he thought was kind of creepy. Because he didn't know. He was like, I wasn't sure if the guy was really off or if he was just method.
Yeah.
But, so he was really method, and he was working as a janitor, I think, when they were making this. And all of his clothes were really Michael Rooker's clothes. The only thing they did was change his shoes and socks.
Yeah.
And the jacket that he wears in the movie, if you look in the movie, whenever there's about to be a murder sequence or something bloody, Michael always takes his jacket off because they only had one.
Yeah.
And they didn't know where to replace it. And Tracy and Tom knew each other they were in a play together. Tom was a Marine.
Okay.
Beforehand. And he was doing a lot of comedy theater.
Yeah. Oh, now that you say that, I could imagine him in that type of role. Was Michael Rooker in that reality TV show where they were trying to find a scream queen for one of the Saw movies?
I didn't watch it. I watched one or two episodes, but I
think I watched one, yeah, and I reckon it was him in it. But if it was him, then I think it's quite a fine guy. Like, he seemed quite nice in it. They had to do a scene with him, and sort of like the best one out of that day, Because he was in Slither, wasn't he?
Yes.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, because he's friends with James Gunn.
Oh, okay.
He became a lot more famous for being on The Walking Dead.
Ah, really? I haven't seen The Walking Dead, actually.
Neither did I. I don't watch it.
He was in Cliffhanger, though. I reckon that's what I know him best from. Which also has Jesus in it.
I haven't seen Cliffhanger in probably 25 years.
Jesus from Like a Prayer.
Oh, Leon.
Yes, Leon.
What was I about to say? Okay. So a lot of people think that this is a biopic of Henry Lee Lucas, but it's really not.
Yeah.
They took very little from the actual crimes. But they did take some stuff. And some stuff they switched around, too. Because when Henry says that his mother made him wear a dress and laughed at him when she was having sex with her Johns, that was really... Well, his name was Otis.
Oh, yep.
It's still spelled the same way, but he pronounced it Otis.
Yeah.
But that was him. And he was molested by like everybody from when he was like 10. And when you hear like what kind of upbringing he had, he there was no chance in hell of him turning out normal.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was, and he I think, well, yeah. So Tracy is playing the girl in real life was 12.
Okay.
And she was mentally handicapped.
Yeah.
And I think Otis fucked around with her. He definitely did something to her that was not good.
Yeah.
I want to say this, though. I think Tracy and Michael have a really good dynamic.
Yeah.
I think everybody is really good in this.
Yeah.
But I particularly like the scenes with Tracy and Michael together because I think they play well off of each other.
Yeah. Well, I think, despite him being a killer, I think that he warms to her because he wants to look after her. There's a level of victimhood that he wants to repair.
Yeah, well...
A part of him wants to, because he kills her.
A part of it. Well, I think that comes from John wanting to make him not entirely, but partially a sympathetic character.
Well, to give him different sides, because if someone's just killing, then that's all they are.
But in real life, I don't know if it was ever confirmed 100%, but there was strong speculation that Henry and Otis had a sexual relationship.
Yeah.
Otis was gay. I think Henry was whatever. But they shot it. There was going to be a scene with Henry and Otis having an intimate moment. I don't think they really do anything like they kiss or anything. I think they kind of embrace.
Yeah.
Or something. And it comes across as homoerotic. But John took it out of the movie because it didn't go.
Yeah. Well, it
And
seems like
I don't think it would have.
an element that didn't need to be put in.
No,
You know, the soup was good
no,
enough.
not with this story.
Yeah.
That he's telling. It wouldn't have matched. It wouldn't have made any sense.
Because I think it could have made this type of relationship seem false. You know, if it's then showing him having the same type of relationship with anyone else, then it's sort of like, so it's just him being an emotional whore.
Otis was a pyromaniac.
Okay.
And he used to kill people, and then he would set the houses on fire. He was sexually aroused by fire, and I think I can't be 100%. I probably should have researched this, but in Henry 2, I'm pretty sure they explore the pyromania.
Yeah.
I think I saw Henry 2 once.
Who was the director? It is a semi-noble one, isn't it?
Say it again?
Who was the director of Henry 2?
Nobody who did Henry 2 had anything to do with this.
No, but like I feel like I found out about it because I looked up the director accidentally. Like,
I think he did a lot of TV.
Yeah.
He directed a lot of TV stuff.
Okay.
But the guy they chose to play Henry, while he wasn't anywhere near as good as Michael Rooker, I think he did a fine enough job. And while the movie really isn't that great, it wasn't anywhere near as bad as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
It was definitely straight to video fare.
Yeah.
It wasn't anything that I cared to revisit.
Yeah.
I don't know if John saw it, but he said that he actually was considering making a sequel, and it was going to...
Are these the Greek guys?
Yeah.
Sorry, by the subway. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the sequel was going to focus on what happened. Well, it was going to take off right where this one left off, and Henry was going to get caught, and it was going to show Henry as a celebrity.
Okay. Yeah.
Because that's really what Henry Lee Lucas became. He became,
Yeah.
he became a celebrity in his own right.
Like the Night Stalker. How they sort of got their notoriety.
And it was like kind of like how Serial Mom played on criminals as celebrities.
Yeah.
That was what John was supposed to be commenting on. John Waters was supposed to be commenting on when he made Serial Mom.
Yeah.
And there's all that stuff about in Serial Mom about serial killers being portrayed as celebrities in the media. But Henry became a celebrity because he was giving interviews all the time, and he was confessing to crimes he didn't commit just so he could get rewards.
Oh my god.
And he would be he was never on a plane before, and he was being flown all over the country saying, "Yeah, I killed this person here," and the police claimed that he knew things about the murder because there was a lot of unsolved murders at that time, and the police claimed that he knew things about the murders that only the killer would have known.
Yeah.
But when the first he claimed that he killed 160 people, then it went to 300 people, then it went to 600 people, and when you look at the timeline of where Henry was, it was impossible for him to be where these other people were killed.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but cases were closed because so many of the investigators just wanted to put a period at the end of them, which is a shame.
Yeah.
But it was also revealed that Otis killed Adam Walsh.
Okay.
And he confessed to it. You know about the Adam Walsh case?
No. What was the Adam Walsh case?
That was a really big case, and it happened in 1981. You know, America's Most Wanted, I assume.
Yeah.
Well, John Walsh, it was his son, and Adam he was at the mall with his son. Adam was 6, and he got lured away by somebody, and they didn't find him for a while. They just found his body, and he had been decapitated.
Yeah.
And it was a really big case. And it was really what I think encouraged a lot of teachers to discuss not getting in cars with strangers, taking things from strangers, because that was a lot that I learned in school, or I heard in school, and it made me fucking scared to death of being kidnapped. So what Otis said was that he lured Adam to his van. I think it was a van. And with promises of candy and toys. And then when he got the kid in the car, he started to fight. He wanted to go back. And then Otis pummeled him. I think he knocked him out. And I think he decapitated him in the car. And he put the head in the back and then disposed of the body in like a ditch.
Yeah.
Now, there's 2 different things that I heard. Well, on Wikipedia, it says that the car was rented, and by the time they found out about Adam, it had already been cleaned or something, or they couldn't get it. I don't know, something like that. But I specifically remember watching a documentary, and they had a photograph of a stain in the back where the head was. And they were able to identify it as Adam based on the shape of it. Because they showed pictures of it. It was like a perfectly shaped blood stain of his head. I don't know, but so there was that, and Otis's confessions. But Otis also admitted to a lot of murders that he didn't commit. So
yeah.
But I think he knew certain things about this kid that he wouldn't have ordinarily if he didn't do it. But there was a time that they thought Jeffrey Dahmer did it. And Jeffrey Dahmer admitted everything. He gave detail for detail what he did, how he did it to all these people.
Yeah.
And he came right out and said, I already told you everything that I did to every single person I killed.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't I tell you this? I didn't do this. Because there were people who said that they saw Adam being led from the mall from a person who met
Jeffrey's appearance. Yeah.
Jeffrey's description. And Jeffrey was in, I think it was Florida at that time, supposedly.
Yeah.
But, yeah. And I know that, could be somebody else, but I think pretty sure it was Henry. But he had this, thing going with one of the investigators, because and I think he liked to talk because it kept him out of his cell, which he didn't like.
Yeah.
He didn't like solitude. So he would always say, call on one of the detectives and say, I forgot something. I killed this other person. And then he would spend hours in a room giving details about this case and that case. And he would always be rewarded with a strawberry milkshake.
Yeah. And company.
Yeah. And he got cigarettes. And a VCR in his cell.
Oh, God.
TV and VCR. He had to have a carton of Pall Mall cigarettes with him at all times. And he refused to eat hamburger. He wanted steak. Because in the prison, that's what they were eating. They were eating hamburgers. And he said, I want a steak. And he finally died in prison, I think, 2001.
Okay.
Otis died in prison in, I think, 96. Otis had cirrhosis of the liver. I can't remember what Henry died of.
Yeah. Just old age.
Oh.
I feel that, I don't know whether, I can't say for sure if this was like the starting point, but I feel like I've seen a few movies that sort of take on this similar approach to looking at serial killers, and whether this was sort of the first one that sort of had popularity. But I mean, it actually reminded me a little, except for it reminded me a little bit of the movie Snowtown, by way of dealing with a villain who is in a lesser socio-economic.
Yeah, I got that a bit when I was watching of Snowtown, what I was able to pick up, because I got that, how the Snowtown killer was, he
Like a sociable creature.
He was, yeah, exactly. And he was like cooking for the family and shit.
Yeah.
And he was outgoing, and he was taking the kids places, and yeah, I'd see the correlate. I did see the correlation there.
Albeit, I don't think Henry believes he's doing justice by killing these people, unlike Bunting did.
No, I don't really think there was a reason per se.
Yeah.
With Henry. Henry was just fucked up. This movie, by the way, was one of the movies that helped establish the NC-17 rating.
Yes. Along with the cook, the thief, his wife, and her lover.
And Tie Me Up, Tie Me Down.
Yes.
I think Henry and June, though, was the first one to officially get the NC-17.
Yeah.
I don't know if Henry ever got classified as NC-17, because whenever I see it anywhere, it's always unrated.
Okay.
But a lot of people think that's why it took so long to get released, because they couldn't
Classify.
show it anywhere. Well, yeah, and theaters didn't want to show it because, well, they did submit it to the MPAA, and the MPAA was like, there's no amount of cuts that you can do.
Yeah.
to get an R. We're not giving you an R for this movie. But what happened was this was in John's early days, and he really didn't know how to present a rough assembly of the movie to the producers and or the investors. So I don't know anything about editing, but he had put together a very rough cut of the movie. And apparently when you edit 16, before it, like all the color timing and all that shit is done to it, it looks really bad.
Yeah.
So, and plus he didn't know how to make it presentable enough. So what he did was, he got the rough cut that he was able to put together. I guess it didn't have music or anything in it. And he played it on a screen and recorded the screen with a camcorder and the music with the microphone that was on the camcorder.
Yeah.
And it was in black and white. It was like over 2 hours long. And again, it was just very, very rough. And those two guys, I can't remember the fucking names, the brothers, they saw it and they were like, ooh, this isn't too good. And they shelved it for 3 years. This guy here, he was not an actor.
Okay.
The guy who's the fence. He does really well. He comes across as a very convincing scumbag. But he worked with those guys with finding the public domain movies because he was like a big expert on it.
Yeah.
And although he had some charges against him felonies, because he was selling movies that were not public domain, selling prints.
Yeah.
And before, VHS and shit, if you were able to make a copy of a 35 millimeter print, you could make a good amount of money.
Yeah.
So he was making copies of movies that you weren't supposed to be making copies of and selling them. And I don't know if he went to jail or what, but he was working with those two guys on getting the public domain cartoons and older movies and shit. And they were trying to think of the perfect actor to play this fence. And he was a wheeler and dealer, a fast talker in real life. And so they were like, you're the perfect guy for this. And he was like, I don't know. I'm not an actor. I don't know if I can do this. And when they got him on set and they were going to do it, he was really jittery.
Yeah.
And very nervous and shaky. And they gave him like a bottle of whiskey and a Heineken. And then after that, he was fine. He does really well.
Yeah. Like, I feel like they might have based the dialogue on things he has said. Like, and they know how he speaks as well, which can also help with delivering a line.
Well, he wasn't a fence. And he didn't take advantage of people, I don't think. But he was a fast talker in real life. Yep. He's since passed.
Is Otis still alive? The actor?
The actor?
Tom Towers?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's still alive. This was funny when they were doing this video camera footage. I think John was filming it.
Yeah.
And they were just... He really liked what they were doing, because this was all improv.
Yeah.
I guess he just told them, just have fun and do whatever. And he just let them keep going and going and going until they finally stopped, and they were like, when are you going to yell cut? And he was just like, oh, I just liked what you were doing. So he had, I don't know how many minutes of them, just having fun and laughing or whatever. I don't remember what exactly it was that convinced the guys at MPI to get the movie off the shelf, to edit it and get it shown. I really don't. But it finally did it, and it had a couple of screenings. 20% of the audience walked out, and it was always during the home invasion scene.
Yeah.
There was a reviewer for the New York Times, I want to say, who really loved the movie and like gave a full page review of it, praising it. And that's what, sparked interest. Yeah. And then Roger Ebert, believe it or not, gave it a really good review. Look, I'll do the best I can, but I don't promise. Granted, this is a little more artistic than the slasher movies that they were bashing. Yeah. But it is still glorified violence for the sake of violence.
But I also feel that he might have been seeing it as condemning that type of violence, and also people watching that type of violence, because there is a scene where he's rewatching the movies.
Right.
So, I could imagine Roger almost believing that the movie is on his side.
I guess. And it also could have been the performances, too, because the performances in this are a lot better than those of the slasher movies that he was bashing at that time. Shit, I lost my train of thought. What was I going to say?
So you were talking about the New York Times giving a good review, and what led them to releasing it?
Yeah, I don't think he said.
So, I was thinking, did Michael Rooker go on to other work, and maybe him being in the popular eye led them to look at it again or something?
No.
Like a certain sacrifice?
That was it. I can't remember who it was. But it was somebody who had a small part in this. I can't remember who it was.
Was it the policeman from the last scene?
No.
Oh, sorry, not the parole officer or whatever it is.
No. No, John knew him.
He looked familiar. That's why I was wondering if, I should have
Well,
looked him up.
he studied acting, and he did do a lot of very small parts. I think he's in Wild Things. I think.
Oh, okay.
I know he did work with John again.
I wasn't sure if he was the dad
friendly.
from Donnie Darko. That's who it reminds me of.
But he did study acting. He just didn't do it very much. I think he preferred to be. I don't remember what he fucking did, but there was. I'm getting derailed. There was one actor who was in this, had a small part. Can't remember who the fuck it was, but he was an actor. He wasn't a volunteer or an extra or whatever. He was an actor who played a part.
Yeah,
and I could be wrong. Don't quote me, but it might have been the father in the home invasion. Might. He did not like the movie when it came out. But then, and he put it at the bottom of his credits on his resume. And then, as the years went on, and the movie started to get more and more attention and became a cult film, and John kept getting his resume because it kept coming across his desk for movies.
Yeah.
Lo and behold, it got bumped to the top of the list. A movie that he hated and was pretty outspoken to John about. I didn't like this movie. Um, and oh, I believe it was. I believe it was the wife of the home invasion. She has the scene in her reel.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It's the first. It's the first thing in her reel.
Yeah. Seeing that she can
But
scream.
that scene was hard for her.
Yeah.
And John felt really bad because he knew it was going to be a rough scene, and he said he told her everything that was going to happen. But he didn't think that she really could grasp it until it actually happened, or how rough or what kind of effect it was going to have on her.
Yeah.
And the little boy in the movie, in that scene too, by the way, was the son of John's assistant.
Yeah.
And he had a ball.
Yeah.
He was not traumatized or anything. John's still in touch with him. He said he just had to come on and wrestle with the guys, and he had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the mother, the actress who played the mother, she really didn't know exactly how it was going to affect her until they did it, and then something went wrong, and they had to do it again.
Yeah.
And he saw her face, and she was like, "Oh."
Yeah. Yeah.
And she did it, but after she went to the emergency room,
Yeah.
she said that she hurt her neck, which she very well probably did.
Yeah.
But John had a very strong suspicion that she was kind of traumatized.
Yeah. Yeah. Almost like psychosomatic pain in the neck.
It was just the shock factor of what she was doing with these guys and the way it played out. It was overwhelming. It was too overwhelming for her. And she needed to see somebody.
Yeah.
What he's saying here, too, is the way Henry operated in real life. He did not stay in one place. He didn't kill people the same way.
Well, that was if you ever watched that Tony Collette miniseries, Unbelievable.
I did. That was really good.
Yeah, I thought that one was really good, but it was sort of a similar thing to what the villain in that was doing. Is just because the different police regions weren't talking to each other, he just didn't do the same crime in the same region.
Right. Didn't she win an Emmy or something for that? I think she did.
Well, I'm not sure. She was recently
I think she
nominated
won.
for The Staircase, but I don't know if she won it for that.
Toni Collette should win everything for everything.
She should just win
That's
Australian of the Year every year.
Because well, I don't know about Australian.
Actually, I was looking her up because she was in a movie in 1998 called The Boys, which I saw a long time ago, obviously. But I was kind of getting vibes from that movie in regards to this movie.
Not the one with Winona Ryder.
No. It's an Aussie movie with David Wenham.
Oh.
And
Who?
David Wenham, I believe, is in it.
Who the hell's that?
He's a semi-attractive man. Just about a guy who gets released from prison and is on parole with his family, and he's sort of the enigmatic figurehead who gets them to kill someone at the end. It's been such a long time, but it was sort of because this movie it reminded me of those movies about lower income crime and murderers.
Yeah.
It just led me down that path.
This scene is pretty rough.
It's the whole documentary feel to it that always works
Yeah,
so effectively.
yeah, and that's what a lot of people say about the movie as a whole, is that it looks kind of like a documentary.
Yeah.
And if it were handheld, it would look more so.
Well, they've got the handheld for the correct moment, like
For the camcorder footage, but the movie as a whole feels kind of documentary-esque.
Yeah.
And everything does feel very real, and it does because of the scenes like the ones between Henry and Becky when they're just talking, and these are moments between what feels like two very real people.
Yeah.
Like, it feels like you're looking into their lives for however many minutes the scene goes on for.
It's almost like that the really good improv movies.
Yeah, yeah. I wonder, on her part, when she talks about how her father abused her, she says, and again, I wonder if this was on purpose, but she says, I know you're not judgmental, but she pauses in between judge and mental. So she goes, I know you're not judgmental or anything. So I wonder if that was on purpose. Because Henry was mental.
Yes. And a
If I
judge,
didn't know
jury,
better,
and
I'd say she was mental.
Just a mental gas.
What was that from?
No, I don't remember.
You don't know that line?
No, what's it from?
If I didn't know better, I'd say she was mental. Now what? More soiled laundry for mommy, I presume. Come in. Hairspray.
You're such a
I've got
spastic.
hampers of ironing to do, and my diet pill is wearing off.
Oh, you were telling me that John Waters loved this movie.
Yes, John Waters does.
And you
And
don't
he-
remember the
he
other
mentions-
directors who loved it.
No,
Were they
No, I
American
don't.
directors?
yes, they were directors I'd heard of.
Yep, yep.
I just don't think that they were. I was a big fan of them or something.
Yeah.
I think. No. I was going to say Martin Scorsese, but I don't think that's right.
Okay. Francis Ford Coppola?
No.
Go get her, will you?
Might have been Gus Van Sant.
Hi.
Oh, okay.
Hi. Do you miss me?
I do like, and I've said this before, I do like a zoom in and a zoom out. Like I feel...
You did. That's wonderful.
Well, there's some slow zooms,
yes,
right?
yeah.
Girl.
Yeah, and I think that's, yeah.
I don't think so, honey. I know I promised, but
She went on, after this, I'm pretty sure she did get, well, after this, John, I think because Henry, got some word of mouth, MPI said, we're going to finance your next movie. And that ended up being The Borrower,
Yeah.
which was
Some
not
like sci-fi.
good. Yeah, it was not good. With Ray Don Chong. I remember I saw that when it first came out, and I was like, what the fuck is... And I still remember the stupid cover. but she was in that, Tracy.
Yeah.
And it was either after they did The Borrower or in between, after she did this. I think it was she did this. She moved to Los Angeles, and she was hostessing while she was trying to find roles.
Like on a plane or a restaurant?
A restaurant.
Oh, okay.
I think Tom is still acting. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. But she isn't so much.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think so. Tom became a successful character actor, but he wasn't not anywhere near as successful as Michael.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like I have seen this face now that you're saying that. Yeah, I've seen it in something. It's got the recognizable teeth.
What'd you do that for? Wasn't any good anymore. Could have fixed it. Shit, the lens was busted right off.
But I think because I thought we've discussed this before. When you have a comedy actor, you find that they can go into horror quite easily, or like quite nicely. There seems to be
Not
an ability.
always.
Not always, but
Not always. I mean, Chris Rock really needed to stay in his lane when he did Spiral because that was not good.
that spiraled out of control.
Yeah, don't, no, Chris. No, Christopher. Well, Spiral was a shitty movie anyway.
See, I didn't mind him, although in saying that he wasn't really acting. I didn't mind him in Nurse Betty, but I think that's because I don't mind the movie as opposed to him. And I think anyone could have played his role.
But when you're talking about, performances like Robin Williams did in 1 Hour Photo, that's a totally different caliber of
And I've yet to
acting
watch
chops.
I think it was Hounds of Love that you were telling me about. Oh no, it was we were talking about Stormwarding, where one of the actors is a comedy actor, and he did quite well.
Yeah, one of the kids, one of the sons. I think it was the main one.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm thinking
Whereas,
Yeah,
I feel that,
and
I don't know what else I'd imagine her in. That's what I was trying to get at. Is
I don't know either. She's not an unattractive girl. I mean, she's a pretty girl, but she's just not like a Hollywood girl.
no,
Like the Hollywood actress type.
she's a very Becky. She reminds me of Becky from Roseanne, like that type of.
She is very American, all-American girl next door. She's not like glamorous or anything like that. This I thought they could have explored a little bit with her husband being in jail for murder.
She's attracted
I
to
think
him.
she came up with the name Leroy
Yeah.
for him because John said what he wanted them to do was he wanted them to write backstories for their characters so that they could feel more closer to them.
Yeah. Create it from their own imagination.
Yes, and some of the stuff made it into the movie, like the I think the story that she tells Henry about being molested by her father. I think she made that up, and they incorporated it. I know Tom wrote some stuff too. I don't remember what it was. Michael recorded his onto a cassette tape or something.
Yeah.
Speaking of Tracy, though, I think the hardest part for her to do was the scene when she stabs Otis in the eye
Yeah.
with the comb,
Yeah.
because that head cost $700,
Ah.
and they could only do it. They had, I think, whoever made it said you can get maybe 3 takes out of this.
Yeah.
After that, it's going to be unusable.
Obviously.
It's gonna fuck it up.
Yeah.
And I think she was nervous. She was like, "Oh shit," because she comes up from behind him,
Yes.
so she doesn't even see exactly where she's stabbing him.
Yeah.
But she got it on the first try.
Oh, good. Good.
So good for her. And the eyeball popping out wasn't in the script, but then they were like, "Oh, it looks good. We might
Happy
as well
accident.
use it." Yeah. What I thought was interesting was, well, the sound effects. The guy who did the sound of the Foley
Yeah.
was very, very creative. For example, he did all of the background in the scene when Otis has that kid in the car, and you hear like a football game going on outside.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It was just him, this one guy, like doing all the sound effects. He was blowing a whistle into a glass,
Okay.
and for the neck snaps, they were styrofoam cups that he just crushed.
Oh, okay.
And for the scene when Henry is dismembering Otis in the tub,
That sounded quite unpleasant.
well, for I don't know what the squishier sounds were, but for the sounds that were more like sinewy, like he was ripping flesh, that was, you know, those netted bags that you get like oranges in?
Yeah. Okay.
He was just ripping them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it was very creative, and everything he did was quite effective.
You got to learn how to listen without your eyes with that type of stuff when you're
Yeah.
making those recordings.
Another interesting factoid about the audio for this was toward the very end, when Henry and Becky are in the car and they're talking while they're driving to the motel. The traffic was really bad, and there was a lot of background noise,
Good advice.
and you couldn't really hear them. And they didn't know how to do it. Well, I don't know if they even know how to do ADR, or they couldn't afford it. Because, well, I don't think they could afford it, because you have to go to a recording studio to do that. So what they did was they found an area that was near a mall, but it was also near like an expressway. So there was traffic sounds, but it wasn't so loud that it was distracting.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Michael and Tracy like sat in the grass and they just recorded the audio.
Yeah.
They just did the dialogue over and over and over again. And I don't remember who she was. I don't remember what her name was, but she worked on the movie and she matched it
Yeah.
all perfectly. You can't tell at all.
Mm. Oh, they did well for stretching their dollars.
He really did. John really did know how to make that $100,000 go far with this movie, and especially with his crew being like, the crew was either, including him, 3 to 5 people
Yeah.
every day. And he found a way to thin it out because they had assistant director. No, was it assistant cameraman or something? I think. Well,
Yeah.
I don't know, but he was an intern,
Yeah.
kind of, but he was still getting paid. And he was a kid from film school, and he kind of thought that it was his job to like co-direct the movie, and so he was like making suggestions and shit that John really didn't want to hear because
It's like, no, stay in your lane.
yeah. And really, the only thing he was contributing to the movie was changing the magazines on the camera.
Yeah.
And John was like, and how much are we paying him? And they told him like $50 a day or something like that. And he was like, just send him home. I'll change my own mags. It's fine. They got extorted, not too bad, a little bit, in the diner
What in
scene.
what way?
Well, they made arrangements with the owner to have it. I don't know, maybe an hour or something, just to do the little scene that they had to shoot. And the owner said, okay, $50. And John was like, okay. So they all came and they're ready, and the owner was like, $50 is not enough. I want 100, which is, it's extortion, but it's really not that bad.
Yeah. They should have gone 100 from the
But
get-go.
John was not happy because he was keeping track of every single penny and where it went. So he was fuming.
Yeah.
And he didn't want to give it to him. But it was too late. They didn't have another location. So he just gave him the $100.
Yeah. Like, they could have paid 50 for the room and then 50 for food. And then that way they could have fed the crew as well.
Oh, the crew wasn't getting shit.
No, but what I'm saying, like, instead of just paying $100 just for dead space, they could have at least done a bit of a win-win for both ends.
Could have made them breakfast.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yes, for John and his 2 other people.
Yeah.
Well, I guess Michael, too. There was another funny story about the car. Car was on its last leg, and it was not being pulled. He was really driving, and for a lot of the scenes, and John was like filming out of the back of a van. And I think toward the end of the movie, or about halfway, I don't remember, the brakes were just not working. And Michael was like, I can't drive this car anymore. We're going to get killed. So he's like, all right, I have a cousin. He had a cousin named Stoney. And John's known Michael for a while, and Stoney comes up a lot Stoney's like a jack of all trades type
Yeah,
person.
He's
He
a
knows how to
grinder.
get shit done. He was like, Stoney will fix the brakes. Let me just get the car. So they brought it to him, and the next day they were like, we really need it tomorrow. And he fixed it, and he brought it back, and he parked it in a no parking zone. And it got towed.
Yeah.
And they called him, and they were like, where the fuck is the car? And he was like, I parked it. And they were like, where? And when he told them, like, Jesus Christ. And they didn't know oh, I know what happened. The whole fucking DMV in Chicago computer database went down that day. So they couldn't find the car.
Yeah.
They lost almost a whole day. But what they did was John and his assistant, camera person or whatever, they went out and they shot a lot of B-roll stuff because there was always something going on
Yeah.
in this area of Chicago. So that's what they did. They went out that night and they shot a lot of that stuff. And a lot of that stuff ended up being in the movie, and that was why it was so long.
So long. This is a...
No, the original cut
Oh, okay.
was
Bip,
over.
bip, bip. Yeah.
The original cut was over 2 hours.
Yeah. I think that would have been far too long.
Promise?
Yes, this is a movie that does not overstay its welcome.
No.
I don't think. I think if it would have been any longer than it is, it would have been too long.
Yeah.
I love you, Henry.
I guess.
I
love
guess.
you too. I guess.
Where are we gonna go now?
We'll find a place.
No, you know he's thinking, okay, how do I don't know how to do this. How do I have sex with someone when it's consensual?
Yeah, but they were gonna before the brother came in.
Okay.
Well, she was seducing him.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know, Henry's not somebody who's capable of loving anybody.
Yeah.
And I think he did care for Becky, but
As much as a
I don't know if
psychopath
it's I don't know. Yes, it's probably that. But I don't know if it's not like he couldn't care for her any more than he already did. I think it was probably he was uncomfortable with the idea of being in this, having this kind of dynamic with her,
Yeah, yeah.
because it was so far detached from the kind of person he was. See, with Otis, it was a platonic thing. That's why they were able to have that friendship, and they were able to do the killings together.
Well, yeah,
because
they-
they understood each other.
They had a shared goal.
They had a shared goal. They understood each other, and I think he knows that Becky would not. He would not have that same kind of dynamic with Becky.
She would be his downfall.
Yes. See, you know what? Sometimes I babble on and on, trying to make a point, and then you just come right
Cut
out
to the heart.
and you articulate it perfectly, and you steal my thunder. Goddamn Australians. You fucking have it all.
Swooping in.
You have the charming accent and the fucking foreskin. And
Oh my god.
I don't remember who it was. But John said that I think it was the wife of somebody who worked on the movie. But they took her to a screening of it, and it's like it's funny, but you kind of feel bad. But at the very last moment before the credits, when Henry takes a suitcase out and disposes of it, she leaned over and went, "Where's Becky?" It's like, oh.
This sort of happened in Australia a few years back in the state. There was
What, body parts and briefcase and suitcases?
yeah, and like because we are very sparse here. Like
Yes, they're very sparse.
we're very sparse, and yeah, there was
Sparse.
a mother and daughter found in a suitcase off the highway.
Oh no, Jesus!
But and when I say sparse, I'm like, and that could have been not found for decades. Like, I was quite surprised.
Well, you got the fucking Outback.
Yeah.
Nobody will find your ass.
No, but like it's sort of that thing where, you know, it's a 1 in a billion shot that someone would pull over to take a piss and find a suitcase.
Well, I mean, even then, you're rolling the dice on if they're going to open it. I wouldn't fucking open a suitcase that had been lying in a ditch.
Especially if it's got all ants on it.
Yes, no. No, we don't want that. I can't believe you think this sounds like Tears for Fears or something wrong with you.
Oh god, I can hear it. Something
I don't hear it at all.
And I'm head over heels. Just gonna add the lyrics just to make sure you can
Okay,
hear
stop
it.
it. They don't like each other anymore.
They released
You
an
know that?
album like a year ago.
Oh, did they? Well, maybe
Yeah.
they reconciled. Because I remember they like went on tour for one of those 80s.
It's like Rumba.
I don't know, but you know they have a bunch of 80s acts.
Yeah, like we
perform.
had something come with Berlin, you know, and a few other.
Now the 90s ones are popular.
Yes, yeah, there was one with the Venga Boys and like Cleopatra's Bride, I think. Yeah, there was a few that came together.
Okay, you're always derailing me.
Sorry.
But I remember hearing that they had to be on opposite ends of the stage because they didn't want to be near each other.
Yeah. Well, those things happen.
They do. They happen all the time in the music beeswax.
I mean, even look at Fleetwood Mac. They've recently, someone left. I think was replaced.
Somebody's
by
always
Axl
fucking
Rose.
leaving Fleetwood Mac. Don't you know that?
Now,
Where the
I
hell is the microphone? What?
didn't mind that movie. You were saying that it's one of those difficult to watch ones. Actually, I feel that I didn't mind it because I have seen movies that came about as a result of it. So it wasn't too hard for me to watch.
I find it to be unsettling.
What do you find unsettling?
What do I find unsettling? What the fuck? What kind of question is that, man? It's a very dark movie, and it's very gritty, and the realism is also a component that makes it difficult to sit through. Some of the scenes, in particular, the home invasion scene, are kind of hard. And plus, it's your portrait of a serial killer. You are taking a journey into the mind of a psychopath, which in itself to me I think is unsettling. But because of all these things, this isn't something that I've seen a lot. I've seen it maybe 3 times. And not because I think it's bad, just because I think it's a rough watch. But I do appreciate John McNaughton's intentions and all the performances and the fact that it's very well put together.
Yeah.
I respect it, but it's just not something that I could watch for pleasure. I have a friend, John, in Texas, but he reads like Edward Lee and extreme horror all the time. So, but this is one of his favorite movies, and he watches it all the time. And when he told me that, I was like, oh. But John, the director himself, said though that he wrote the screenplay intentionally to be comedic. And if you're watching it for the first or second time, you really don't notice the comedic elements. But a lot of it is in the dialogue between Henry and Otis.
Okay.
Because they're two dim bulbs.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's supposed to be like, Tweedledee and Tweedledum with them. And the more you watch it, the funnier it's supposed to be seen as. By the way, the way that Henry is keeps the shot caller, we'll say.
Yeah.
That's the way the dynamic between he and Otis was.
Yep.
Because Otis had like a 75 IQ.
Yeah.
He was not intelligent. Well, Henry wasn't intelligent either.
But he was still the alpha of the two, yeah.
He was the alpha, and he was at least somewhat coherent when he spoke.
Yeah.
He could make some sense sometime.
He didn't dribble into a cup when he was just...
No.
I was actually trying to think of the relationship between Eileen and Christina Ricci. Because I forget her name. But...
Well, I could tell you one thing.
What's that?
The woman who the character was based on didn't look anything like Christina Ricci.
What did she look like?
Not Christina Ricci.
Oh, that's okay. Thank you. So,
she was very homely and overweight.
oh, okay. Very lesbianic looking.
I guess. Christina Ricci didn't want to get uglied up like what's her name did. Charlize.
I just remember watching an interview with Christina about Monster.
Christina, yes.
Christina, I don't know why I just rolled that R that didn't exist. And she was sort of saying that she was playing her like some whiny little entitled brat. And just, I really appreciate her trying to convey that. Just someone like who wants someone else to do all the work for her and sort of live in a not in luxury, but like someone who can't be bothered to get their own job and just be a lounge around.
Mm-hmm.
Like someone else you might know.
Comment
I'm just
because
joking.
that is another. Shut up! Don't you talk about Mitchell like
Okay.
that. That's another movie that I can't see myself watching for pleasure. I mean, I saw it once when it first came out. I appreciated it for what it was, but it's like, okay, I'm not going to revisit this again.
Yeah.
But I have seen a lot of documentaries about Eileen Wuornos, and she was not a good liar at all. I don't know how anybody believed the fucking word she said, but I saw her on the fucking... There's footage of her on the stand telling her bullshit stories about how she was attacked and shit, and one of the Johns poured alcohol in her eyes, and you could tell she's lying because
she's like
she keeps
drooling.
looking at the ceiling, and she's trying to, like... Okay, where do what did I say before?
Yeah.
Okay. So what would be really bad here? Okay. It was not convincing at all.
When you tell the truth, you don't need a good memory.
Yes, that's right, Judge Judy.
Baloney.
I say that all the time. But she was really trying to be emotional and play the victim, and I was like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm not buying it, baby cakes.
I remember I was reading a...
Her performance was about as convincing as Anna Nicole Smith when she took the stand.
Was she fed lions with that one as well?
She very well might have been.
Or at least she snorted
I
them.
think there are there are sometimes I think women think, you know, I need to convey emotion, but I can't cry on cue. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get a tissue and dab my eyes. Maybe that'll be good enough.
Yeah.
And that's what I think she was doing, and what I think Eileen was doing. So there's
Using a bit of onion mascara. Like I always get images of Danny DeVito trying to cry for the police like, in Ruthless People.
Isn't that your favorite movie?
It's one of my... I gave it a 5 stars. Looking at the movies I've reviewed, and that was one of them I gave it 5 stars.
And what did you give Soap Dish?
I actually don't know if I've reviewed that one. I need to see.
You fucking better give it 5 stars.
Definitely not a 1.
No, because you have taste.
Yes.
Well,
Well,
and it's not all in your mouth.
no.
That's from an I Love Lucy episode.
Well, that's lovely. So I'll have to get you to try track down the movie The Boys with Toni Collette and see if you enjoy that one.
The boys.
The boys.
The boys. First comes
Let's
the
hear it for
blood,
the
then
boys.
comes the boys. Like sniffing dogs.
We'll pray.
Not right now. Now we're gonna play with the boys. The boys.
And do you have any final thoughts on the movie?
My final thoughts are never pick up hitchhikers on the hood of your car.
I've picked up a hitchhiker before. But that was when I was living in the hills, and so I was relatively safe.
Yes, I know you picked up Xavier. I know all about that, how he
Oh,
blew you in the
that's
back seat.
But I knew him, so he's not a hitchhiker.
You were like, come on, Xavier. How you gonna pay me for this ride, Xavier?
You're
I've
obsessed.
seen you work in that chain gang, Xavier. Now let me see you work this fucking flesh
Aw,
sword.
It's crying.
Oh my god. What are your final thoughts on Henry?
A good entry into the realm of horror thriller serial killerism. We wouldn't be here without it. Oh, and Brandon, love the suit.
Yep. So this was my pick, and that means next week is going to be one of Tony's movies. So,
Shannon,
and I know which
here we
one it's
come.
going to be. I know which one it's going to be. So, and I'm not sure how I feel about that because I didn't finish it the first time I sat down to watch it. But I'm going to for the show, for the people. I'm going to do it for the people.
For the boys.
For the I'm going to do it for the boys. Okay. So, all right. I want to say thank you to Tony for joining me for this. And I want to say thank you to everybody for listening. And until next time, this is Brandon Ford wishing you all unpleasant dreams.